Hello. Are you a people person? I find that in my life, it's a dichotomy. The answer to whether I am a people person or not is surprisingly both yes and no. I recorded a video concerning our greatest fears and how our default response to other people who have fears that are different than our own should be one of sympathy, kindness, and helpfulness. And you listen to that and you think, this guy sounds like everybody's best friend, must be the nicest guy in the world. And I do try to be a good person. I basically do care about other people, and I think that the default position toward other people, all things being equal, should be kindness. The problem with that is, in real life, I have to deal with too many jerks. People who are just plain mean, people who pursue their own interest only, people who frankly don't give a damn about the welfare of other people. Here's one example. I'm a strong supporter of universal health care for the United States. I believe that every man, woman, and child should have access to quality, affordable health care. I think it's incredibly cruel that people should have to suffer without health care and are getting a serious problem being able to pay for their health care. I think it's a basic human right. There are people who are very much opposed to that idea. I find that position to be cruel and insensitive, and quite honestly, it makes me angry. Is it wrong to be angry about that and other issues? I don't think so. Now, unfortunately, with regard to the issue of universal health care, we're not going down that road in the United States. And I think that's very sad, and it's very tragic. And it angers me that we're not going that way. Most unfortunate. A real tragedy. And so while I do try to be nice to other people and treat other people well, there are people who, through their attitudes and actions and their general demeanor, just frustrate the fire out of me. And that's true in my personal life as well. I have a close friend, I guess we're still close friends anyway, that we, in a sense, sort of grew up with each other. William, I'll call him by his first name. We lived in the same house for a while when we were very young. And how that came about is all very complicated, but we became sort of like brothers and became very close and faced a lot of adversity together. And the way that friendship developed was, it got to the point where I was always there for him and he was always there for me. One needed help, the other one was there helping. I sent him money many times, he sent me money many times. Western Union. We had keys to each other's houses. Anytime one needed a place to stay, the other one had a place to stay. And we did a lot of helpful things for each other over the years, and there was never any really keeping tabs or anything like that, or figure out who owes who what, or anything like that. His son became my godson, my adoptive nephew for all practical purposes, and Christian and I have always been very close, and I think still are very close to this day, and he will be the one who inherits most of my stuff, whenever my time comes around. But, William, in spite of the closeness of that relationship over the years, he frustrates the hell out of me sometimes. A recent dispute concerns the fact that he thinks I ought to answer the phone no matter what's going on, no matter what I'm doing. I ought to take a phone call anytime it comes in. And a lot of times when I answer the phone and I'm doing something that I want to do or I need to do, he'll ask me what I'm doing. And if he doesn't approve of that, he'll get mad because he thinks that I need to be on the phone in an argument rather than doing this thing that I want to do or need to do. But I've never been that type. I'm not one to be controlled by the telephone, because our personal relationship goes back to the days when there were no cell phones or anything like that, and you got busy signals and people weren't home and things like that. And I've always wanted to be in that mode where I can shut off the phone and not think that anything I'm going to do is going to be interrupted by a telephone call. And he doesn't like that. And so that's one reason we haven't spoken in about a month. Now, if some big issue came up in his life and I was able to do something about it, I still would. If I was able to send him some money or something like that, and he needed it desperately, I would. If he got sick or injured and was in the hospital or something, I'd be the first one up there seeing him, checking on him, see if I could do anything. But in spite of the fact of being extremely close friends, to the point that the word brother was used from time to time. I don't really like the word brother because in my life it has a not such good connotation, and I won't go into all that. But we've been very close friends, but still the guy aggravates the fire out of me. And sometimes I just need to not see him for a while or talk to him for a while. Now, he can call me in a month, and if there's some big issue, well, I'll try to help. Or if he just wants to get together and, go see a movie or something, I'll do that. But the guy still aggravates the fire out of me. I'm one of these people who put a lot of stock in being a good person and treating other people well. But at the same time, I'm the guy with the 12-foot high fence around the property and the wrought iron gate in the front, which is usually locked, and there's a big U-turn sign on it. And maybe I'll send you a picture of that one of these days. So for me, the question of am I a people person or not, that is actually kind of complicated. I took a personality test one time to try to learn a little bit about myself, and the results came out I'm definitely an introvert. In spite of the fact that I'm speaking into this camera right now, I'm a strongly introverted person, and that doesn't stop people from being performers or actors or singers or dancers or public speakers or things like that. It doesn't stop them from that, but it does mean that we have a rather tight social circle. Our closest friends tend to be people we know for years and years, and those relationships tend to be very deep. But at the same time, we're not necessarily a chatterbox, in spite of the fact that I'm spending a lot of time talking on video these days. That's become a hobby of mine. I do care about people, but in other ways, people can anger me. Insensitivity, cruelty, ridiculous intolerance. Those things can anger me, and I don't necessarily feel the need to be everybody's best friend, when they take those points of view. And I'm not talking about the collective conniption fit going over the U.S. election right now, because I think politics, the U.S. in September 2016 is pretty much screwed, booed, and tattooed, to take a phrase from the movie La Bamba, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, who played Richie Valens, who was killed in a plane crash, and that's a long story. But there was this phrase used, screwed, booed, and tattooed, and politically that's where the United States is. But to be a good person, does that mean you have to be everybody's best friend? Well, no, you can't be that way. I can't be that way. And my circle of friends is actually pretty tight, the close ones. And a lot of people, especially the chatterboxes who talk off the top of their head and they don't know what they're talking about, and yet they'll talk to you like an expert, they just irritate the hell out of me. So the question of whether a person is a people person or not, for me, that's rather complex. It's a dichotomy. In one sense, you do care about people, want to treat people right. There are things in life that I would not wish on my worst enemy. One of them was bacterial meningitis, which I got in 2002 and almost died from. Spent 12 days in the hospital, and I cannot imagine wishing that on another human being. Another time, and it might not seem bad, but it really was, I had nasal surgery to repair a deviated septum, and turbinate surgery to reduce the size of the turbinates to improve my breathing. And for about the first 24 hours after that surgery, I had my nose packed and could not breathe. And I cannot imagine wishing that on another human being, in spite of the fact that some people do make me very angry. Whoever you are, I hope those things never happen to you, even if you happen to be one of my worst enemies, which hopefully they're not watching, people who would be in that category. I'm a person who doesn't suffer fools well. I don't like ignorance because I feel like there's no excuse for it. I think that most ignorance is fairly willful because people just don't bother to get the facts. And that's a kind of behavior that just irritates the living daylights out of me. People who say things, a lot of times it happens in politics, a lot of times it happens on the conservative side of U.S. politics a lot, But it can also happen on the progressive side. I've seen that where people don't understand procedures and they think maybe that a U.S. president could just issue an executive order about, national debt or guns or something, when really they don't have the authority. And so sometimes people on the progressive side of politics don't quite understand that. But people who don't bother to get the facts, I find that extremely irritating. And it can be hard to have any kind of decent personal relationship with people who just don't bother to get the facts about anything in life, people who are just willingly ignorant. People who do the facts, and they are rare, as I've seen, well, they kind of have my respect, part because they're so few and far between. So when you see people who actually know what they're talking about in a particular issue, that impresses me. I respect that. But then there's this thing about social media. Am I a people person with regard to the expectations of social media? And not necessarily. I've stopped participating in most Facebook groups because the behavior that I see there is just absolutely awful. You have people who have no clue what they're talking about on any subject, political or otherwise. They just have no idea what they're talking about, and they'll get into name calling. And then you have administrators who are kind of huffy and just really smart alecky. I saw that with the Christian left. Those people can get really irritating at times if there are areas that you disagree with them. The Christian left. And then with regard to the personal aspect of social media, I got to tell you, since I've been on Facebook since 2009, the overwhelming majority of the content that I see on most people's profiles is just kind of blah. I mean, really. Not anything remotely interesting in most profiles. You do find a few intelligent, smart people here and there, and I'm always happy to see that. That I respect. That I appreciate. But as far as being the type who just shares every mundane thing that goes on and that sort of thing, I got to tell you, most of what I see on most people's profiles doesn't really interest me at all. Now, I'm still the guy who cares about other people, still the guy who wants everybody to have health care, still the guy who wants, good things to happen to people, not bad things. But at the same time, I disrespect willful ignorance, and I despise people who take unnecessarily hateful positions about health care and like that. It's really, really hard to like those people. So I guess in a way what I'm saying is it's not easy to be a good person because people don't make it easy. I was thinking about this question the other day that a person might ask of me if they knew me. How can you be so sympathetic and empathetic toward people on one hand and so disdainful on the other hand? And I hate to tell you, but the answer that came to me right away was, it's easy. Because unfortunately, people make it easy. People who are willfully ignorant, people who just don't give a damn about other people. People do make that easy. So what I found in my life, the question of am I a people person or not, the answer, it sort of depends on what you mean by people person. And if you don't have a specific answer in mind, and maybe this is true in your life as well, the answer to whether I'm a people person or not is yes and no. Seems like a contradiction, but that's pretty much the way it is. Is that true in your life? Be interesting to discuss that sometimes.